right, everyone, we're going to start unmuting people, and we should be ready to start the meeting any moment now.
Oh, you're unmuted.
Clerk Dreyfus, can you say something, please? Yeah, Clerk Dreyfus, I believe you guys have, again, microphones that are too close to one another. We're getting some pretty significant feedback from your connection.
Okay, we're testing it out. We're turning off her mic. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Stand by, we're still listening.
Hello. All right. Interesting.
All right, Ron, we should be set. All the proper people have been unmuted. We're not hearing any feedback. You should be go ahead, ready to start the meeting.
List the people too, like Joyce. We got Fire Chief, Menser.
Okay, ready? All right, it's at 6:03. I'm going to call this a regular meeting, which is also a virtual meeting of the Meridian Township Board to order. And we will start out with a Pledge of Allegiance. So all those, we have an image of the flag here on the screen. So all those able, rise, say the pledge.
Rise.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we will now go on to a roll call from our clerk. You're muted, Mr. Dreyfus. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, that was automatic apparently. Supervisor Spica.
I am here.
Treasurer DeShane. Treasurer DeShane.
He has disappeared from my screen.
Okay, well, I don't have him present right now. I'm gonna come back. I'll give him,
He was here a minute ago.
Trustee Jackson,
Here.
Trustee Opsimer. Trustee Opsimer,
I believe he's going to be a little bit late.
okay, not present. Trustee Sunland
Here.
and Trustee Wazinski,
Here.
present. 5 present currently.
All right, we have a quorum.
Treasurer DeShane and Trustee Opsimer are not here currently.
All right, we have a quorum, and we're still getting some feedback from you occasionally, Brett, so I don't know if there's anything more you can do.
Is your turned off? Okay, ours has to be turned off. We have to have the recording secretaries turned off. They seem to
Right.
turn on and off automatically.
I see. All right, we have a presentation, introduction of the new full-time paramedic firefighter. Is that happening, Manager Walsh?
Yes. Yes.
Hello, Supervisor and board members. Mike Hamill, thank you for allowing us to get this on the agenda this week. I want to introduce Kelsey Gramowski. You guys all met her last fall. We tried a new process with our hiring process where and center to fire training, which is traditionally we hire someone that has both. Started the program in October and completed in the end of March. Did very well. She's local, member from the Lansing area, went to Lansing Catholic, and has been a great addition, part-timer with us. And now that she's completed, we have a vacancy and we'd like to start her full-time. I think she's online.
Muted. I'm Kelsey. I'm the new full-time firefighter paramedic. I would first like to thank the supervisor and the board. This has been an awesome opportunity that I've had with Meridian Township, and I'm happy to say that I'm fully certified now and excited to continue my learning with the township.
Thank you, Kelsey.
I want to say hello to Kelsey.
Hello.
Any questions for her? Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, if that's it from the chief, we will then move on to the coronavirus task force update, which I believe is also the chief.
Yes, sir. Again, thank you guys for allowing me to give an update. So a lot of good things have been going on, you know, trying to maintain the social distancing and, you know, only essential employees coming to work, and a lot of important things have been completed in the township. One of the things I really like to touch on is the hotline. So those out in the audience, if you don't know, Manager Walsh has created a hotline, 517-853-4040, 853-4040. You can call that from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. And really, there's no dumb question. Just call if you have questions about anything going on, any concerns you have, even if you can't get your groceries in your house. The goal here is for us to help any way we can. So please call that number. Just a reminder for Public Works, don't flush any of your wipes that you're using to clean counters and such. They do get caught in the system. It's been going really well, but he wanted to remind everybody of that. Police and fire, we're still doing everything that we normally do. Our run volume's down a little bit, but we're still responding as needed. And luckily, we've all been healthy. I do want to send out a little condolences that, you know, prayers go out to police and fire in the state of Michigan. We have lost a couple firefighters and some police officers in the state of Michigan. So we just wanted to wish their families the best and let them know we're thinking and praying for them. Just an update for Ingham County. Right now, there's 265 total patients that we've had in the last month or so. 4 have died. We have currently 25 hospitalized, and only 4 of those are in ICU. And then the rest are home recuperating. The numbers have started to go down. If you've been watching the last 5 days, I think within the last 4 days, we kind of hit a peak, went down a little bit, hit another peak. And now the last 3 days have kind of shown a steady pattern, especially in Michigan. So hopefully that will continue. And someday in the next couple weeks or so, we can get back to some type of normalcy. I don't really have anything else unless anybody has any questions.
Are there questions for the chief?
Yes, I have a question.
Oh, okay, Clerk Dreyfus, go ahead.
We want to swear in our new firefighter.
Yeah, you know what? We'll set a date for that. You know, we can either wait for this to settle down because of social distancing, or we can try to do something when you're in social distancing.
Yeah, I'll be in, you know, we can do it tomorrow. I'm available tomorrow, and we can set up an appointment for another day. We could do it
First
6 or
day
8
of work will be, her first day of work will be Friday. So,
okay. Next week we can schedule it. We'll be available. I'll be available, for example, next Tuesday, all day next Tuesday.
okay, I'll email you and we'll work it out. But thank you for
Okay.
bringing it up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, chief.
You're welcome.
All right. Mr. Giebes, do we have any citizens out there trying to get in?
No, but we have not yet given the telephone number. Public comment will be accepted via the telephone number 517-349-1232. We're going to pause briefly and allow people to call in. Again, the telephone number for public comment is And while we give people a chance to do that, Supervisor Steicha, you might give them a quick reminder of the rules regarding public comment. And I will finish by saying there's not good two-way communication during their public comment. That'll have to take place through another medium.
All right, well, while we're waiting to see if anybody calls in, for those who are paying attention to this broadcast, you get 3 minutes to speak. I will call on you one at a time. We will have a timer. We'll warn you just before those 3 minutes are over. We'll ask you to keep your comments as much as possible to our agenda, and that you be civil and address the board as a whole and not individuals, and not to anyone else out there who may or may not be part of this virtual meeting. So that's sort of the game plan, and hopefully, if you're interested, you have gotten on that number and called in so that Mr. Geeves or one of the staffers that's helping him can get you to us public comment. We'll wait a minute or so and see whether that happens.
And we have no people calling in at this time, Supervisor Steicha, but there will be another point for public comment at the end of the meeting, and I'll give that telephone number one more time now. And then, of course, we'll do it again at that particular juncture of the meeting. It's 517-349-1232. 517-349-1232. Thank you very much.
Yes, and as you said, there'll be a public comment right near the end of the meeting, and people can comment on whatever they want to at that time. Same rules apply. Okay, we want to move on to the township manager's report. Mr. Walsh. You are muted, Mr. You're still not being heard.
I don't sure I am.
We are not hearing you, Mr. Walsh.
Who are we waiting? Is it Frank?
Yeah, we're waiting for Frank to give his
I don't
report.
think he's here.
Can Frank hear us?
I hear you, but and I show that I'm not muted. That's okay.
There's something going on with the audio. Whether people hear the noises I'm hearing and not Mr. Walsh. Okay, Mr. Well,
I'm sorry, this is Stephen. If you give me 5 minutes, I'm going to go down, take a quick look and see if I can resolve whatever the technical issue is there. And if you can come back to this in just a moment, we'll see.
All right, we will move ahead with the agenda then and come back to Mr. Walsh. Hopefully. Okay, we have approval of the agenda. Can board members?
I move to
hear me,
approve the
or-
agenda as presented.
Okay. It was moved by Clerk Dreyfus. I see a hand from Ms. Sutherland, but she's muted. Are you going to second it, Ms. Sutherland? You're still muted, but we can read your lips.
I can second it.
Thank you. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I've been told that we have to do roll call because it's on TV and we don't, people know that everybody voted.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we don't need a formal roll call for this. I'll just go run through the names quickly. I vote yes. Ms. Sutherland,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyfus,
Yes.
Mr. DeShane, by the way, is here with us now. Mr. DeShane?
Yes.
And Ms. Courtney.
Yes.
I mean, Wazinski, Ms. Courtney. You show up on the screen as Courtney. The rest of us are stuck with last names. You get a first name. Okay.
Just Courtney.
All right. So we approved the agenda by 6 to 1 absent. Is that right, Mr. Dreyfus?
Yeah, 6-0 with one absent.
All right, we now move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of communications, the minutes from March 31 regular meeting, which was done virtually, the bills, and the Lake Lansing Advisory Committee appointments, which is something we have to periodically do. Those are wonderful people who come forward to want to do that work to ensure the environmental situation in Lake Lansing area. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Raise your hand. Ms. Jackson.
I move approval of the consent agenda. Support.
supported by Courtney Wazinski. Any discussion or need to pull anything off? Looks like not. All right, then because of the bills, we'll need a roll call from the clerk.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes,
and clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Motion passes 6-0.
thank you very much. We don't have the attorney on this broadcast, so he's not here. We don't have the hearings, so we come to our action items. And the first action item is the special use permit number 19131, the W investment.
Supervisor Stika, point of order.
Yes, sir.
We have item 3A, the remote meeting policy and guidelines.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? After I insisted to be there, I forgot about it.
It's okay.
Yeah, let's, before we move on to the action
I was gonna-
items, the other
I was
ones.
gonna make that motion.
Okay, you're moving to adopt the meeting policy and guidelines?
I move to adopt the Charter Township of Meridian electronic and telephonic meeting rules as attached to the memo.
And those will apply until, as long as this crisis goes on and we're required to do these meetings this way.
I support the motion.
Supported by the treasurer. Any,
Before would like to have some discussion on it.
that's what I just asked. I didn't need discussion. Well, first, Mr. Dreyfus, anything you want to say on it?
We are required to post a notice 18 hours in advance of the meeting on our township website, as well as we post it in the lobby on both doors. And that information allows citizens to participate in the meeting according to the Open Meetings Act. And so we need these guidelines in order to fully comply with the Open Meetings Act, and also so that we have a consistent policy in place.
Now, Treasurer DeShane, you had something?
Well, I think we've got to be flexible about this policy as well. I mean, not that I think the motion as presented is fine. We're going to have technical problems we need to be aware of. I was here 10 minutes early, all ready for the meeting to start, and my internet went south. And so I spent 10 minutes trying to get back online. I finally used the hotspot on my phone to log back in with internet from that. So we're going to have to be aware of situations where if a board member falls off the meeting for a reason, we need to be flexible to say, hey, what happened here? And give that board member a chance to come back into the meeting for the discussion. In many cases, it might not be because, most likely it wasn't be because the board member decided to leave the meeting, but because there were technical issues. With lots and lots of people at home, working from home, school-age children at home, huge amounts of download, a huge stress being put on our internet backbone, we're going to have more technical issues than we had tried this in a non-pandemic time. So I would like us to be aware of that, and should a member drop off like I just did for 10 minutes, we need to be cognizant of that and make an attempt to contact that board member to find out what happened before we continue the meeting. It may slow down the meeting, but to me, it's essential that we have the full board here for important discussions.
All right, well, as long as we have a quorum, though, I think we're going to be required to keep going because we can't know why the person's not there until they come back and tell us, as you just did. I think for purposes of the minutes, I'd ask the clerk to just make a mention that Mr. DeShane explained why he was not there because of his internet collapsing temporarily, but he's back. And at this point, is there any other discussion? Because by law, according to our legal counsel, we do need to adopt the policy. All right, then we need a vote, Mr. Dreyfus.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. All right, now we go back down to the action items, and the first one was the special use permit number 19131, the W Investment Holdings. We have a presentation on that. Mr. Kieselbach, are you?
Sure.
Thank you.
This is one that you discussed at your last meeting. This is a request for a provisioning center. It's at 1614 Grand River Avenue. It's on the east side of Central Park Drive and north of Grand River. They're proposing to build a brand new building, approximately 4,000 square feet on 2.4 acres. It's zone C2, so it's allowed use by special use permit, subject to the township board's approval. It does meet all the required setbacks for a normal building, and it also meets all the required setbacks for a provisioning center from a church or school or daycare. So Planning Commission held a public hearing on this and recommended approval.
And we did discuss it at our last virtual meeting, and I think we were pretty sound on going forward. Does somebody want to make the motion?
Yes,
Okay, Clerk Dreyfus.
thank you. I move to adopt the resolution approving special use permit number 19131 to construct a medical marijuana provisioning center at 1614 Grand River Avenue.
I believe that the treasurer had his hand up for seconding. Is that right?
I support the motion.
Is there any further discussion, or we need to talk about this anymore, Mr. Dreyfus?
I think the topic has been thoroughly vetted. We've discussed this numerous times over a long period. This specific location is appropriate, as the community planning director just summarized. It meets all the conditions of our ordinance, and we're ready to move forward with it.
Mr. Shane, anything?
Just to concur with the clerk, it meets our criteria. What I like about it is it's a new construction in our, it still meets our fill-in criteria. So it's in the area we want it. We're not cannibalizing existing business, and it will be a new business that will add to our commercial core.
We got most of what you said, and I think we got the main gist of it, because
Got it.
maybe by the way you had to hook in, Phil, you're getting a little bit of a feedback when you talk. Okay. Anyone else need to talk on this, or are we ready to vote? Anybody flashing their hand across the screen? All right, do we need a roll call?
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes.
Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane
Yes.
and trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We now move on to B of 12, which is the zoning amendment number 20020. This is a township board proposal, multi-family zoning districts. Mr. Kieselbach, you want to tell us quickly about this one?
Yes, this amendment, as you said, was initiated by a township board. What it does basically is allow for detached single unit, a house, to be built as part of an overall multiple family project. Again, we put some restrictions so they couldn't come in and build all single family detached. They would have, it could only be 50% or less of the total density would be dedicated for a single family unit. This was initiated to bring into a different type of housing. And we've seen from other developers asking for this kind of mix, instead of going through the mixed use plan unit development, simply use it in the multiple family zoning to allow for the detached single family units. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this amendment.
Okay. Is there a motion? Trustee Jackson.
I move to adopt the resolution approving zoning amendment number 20020 to allow a mix of single-family detached and multiple family dwellings in the RDD, RD, RC, and RCC multiple family zoning districts.
Is there support for that?
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wazinski. Discussion, Ms. Jackson.
I am in full support of this zoning amendment change. I believe that the addition of more diversity in these zoning districts, these multiple family zoning districts, is a positive thing for creating a environment in which we are.
Are other
all
people
one
having trouble
community.
hearing her?
Nope.
You guys could hear? Her? Maybe it's just my connection then. Okay, I had a little difficulty. Get the gist of what she was saying. Is there other comments on this? Ms. Wazowski?
I would just add, I agree with the diversity. I think it allows for more flexibility as well. So the density could even be less, yet we have still a community-based development that could happen. So full support.
Anyone else? Yes, Treasurer.
Yes, I support this change as well to our zoning amendment. This reflects the new reality of rental communities, that they're not the rental communities of 20 or 30 years ago. Renters are asking for a broad spectrum of options. And in this case, we're going to allow Newton Point to include single-family standalone houses as rental units. It would have been unheard of not that long ago, but it's what the market is demanding, and it's what one of our premier developers, DTN, is going to provide to the market. So it's unique, it's new, but I think it's an exciting change, and it shows that we as a township can change as well to adapt to what the market is asking in the rental housing area.
Someone else want to comment on this? If not, we need a vote, Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stike,
Yes.
Clerk excuse me, Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. Our next item is the prevailing wage policy, proposed prevailing wage policy. Does someone want to make a motion on that? Mr. DeShane.
I move to adopt the prevailing wage policy for the Charter Township Meridian as attached.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wazinski. I don't know if you got it, but our attorney recommended that we add a little preamble, which I asked be distributed to everybody today. And it basically is, he is convinced that this is a totally legal constitutional policy, that there's no legal issues with adopting it. But there have been some confusing issues out there in some other communities, and he recommended this little paragraph that cites to the statute and also to a Supreme Court case that he thinks really supports this. And by putting it on there, in case somebody does challenge this, it just strengthens his ability to defend it. So I make a motion that we add that language.
Support.
Supported by, was that you, Clerk Travis?
Yes.
All right, and I think I've explained what it was in my statement of it. Any further comments on it?
No.
And all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
I got to go through everybody. Never mind. Pat Jackson, aye or no?
Yes.
Let's see, Clerk Dreyfus,
Yes.
Ms. Wazinski,
Yes.
Ms. Sutherland,
Yes.
Mr. DeShane.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's, and I say yes, that's 6-0 for the amendment. So now we go to the proposed prevailing wage policy with that amendment. Any further discussion on that? We talked about it in our last meeting. All right. Since it's a policy, I guess we could adopt it the same way, but making me and to let the clerk do his job, I'll have him call the roll.
Well, just because you did that, now it comes back to you, Supervisor Stike.
Yes.
That's not funny how that works. Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
and Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. So the prevailing wage policy as amended is adopted. All right, we'll now come to COVID-19 compensation and benefits. And
We could mention.
Mr. Walsh or is Ms. Marks?
That there's, he just mentioned and amended, so I think we can combine as attached and amended.
Can you hear me now?
Hmm?
Coming through.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, we had to switch locations, so we're having a little power issue here. So, this is a complicated issue to walk through, and I'll walk through it the best I can with you. So the federal law now allows for the township or instructs the township to provide 80 hours of what we call COVID sick time. And we will provide that to all employees who are not deemed essential critical infrastructure employees. So for instance, police and fire obviously is deemed critical infrastructure essential. So we exempt them from that. And we exempted several public works employees who are keeping lift stations and water and sewer going. There are other folks, other employees, other team members not taking away from what they do on a daily basis. For instance, if your job is to write up police reports, take care of our police reports, and write and institute those into the system, you can't do that from home. So there's certain individuals in the organization who we then are a number of them who have been deemed non-essential, but those folks and they're not exempt, so they are subject to the 80 hours. So right now, the director Marks and I and the directors are all managing through each department to make sure that everyone uses that's not that we haven't exempted from the 80 hours. They use their 80 hours during this time. So we have people that are working at home. We have to monitor their time. We have to know exactly what they're doing on their time. It all has to be verified, documented. But also we want them to use their 80 hours. What we don't want to happen is, and if it's not handled correctly in an organization, what will happen is this will all pass May, June 1st, who knows? And if they haven't used their 80 hours, they could come back for a variety of reasons and use their 80 hours and be gone from the organization. So we're working through all of that. That's kind of a summary of the 80 hours, what we're calling the COVID sick time. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act is the official name, effective April 1, and that's in your memo. What we're asking you tonight is some direction as we move forward on compensation and benefits. And there's a myriad of ways that communities are dealing with this across the state. I've talked to 40, 50 different township and city managers, and there's 38 different ways they're all doing this. What we're asking you tonight is, our recommendation is, and that's what the motion states, is that as we get through this pandemic, whether that be May 2nd, May 9th, or June 1st, whatever that might be, that when it comes to furloughing and laying people off, whatever you want to call it, that's the decision of the administration. When you get to what we're talking about tonight, it's really a policy decision about whether we're going to continue to pay people who might be home for 2 or 2.5 months. And they're all working in some manner, some to more of a degree than others. But what we're really asking you tonight is in a policy discussion, decision, do you wish us to continue paying all of our employees through the COVID-19 full benefits? We're talking about full-time employees, because there will be part-time employees, i.e. crossing guards and others that we're going to have to manage in a different way. But that's really the discussion, Mr. Supervisor, is we're going to make sure that everyone uses COVID 80 hours of sick time that's provided. So when this does end, people will return to work. But in the meantime, what do we do with compensation and benefits, having no idea where this is going to end? That's really the point we're at. And if your next meeting, it happens to be, let's say, May 5th, that'll be past the April 30th deadline that's out there right now. And so we want to know how what's in the mind of the board for how we move forward with compensation and benefits for full-time employees. That's really the nub of the issue. Our recommendation is in here, but we want to provide it to you because this really is a policy decision that should be at the board level.
All right, who wants to open up the discussion? And I'll jump at it. Yes, Mr. Treasurer DeShane.
Well, I support the motion. I think it's important that we continue to pay our full-time employees who, if they're not at work, are not at work because we've asked them to stay home per the governor's instructions, and that only essential employees be required to report to work. So I do support the motion. I do have a question about the language, though. Right now, the motion reads through the COVID-19 pandemic. It seems like maybe it would be better if we added to that as declared by the governor of Michigan or something like that, that gave a clearer idea of when, how long this will carry on, because I can see it being interpreted as long as one person in the state of Michigan has the COVID-19 virus, then we're required to. I don't think that's the intent of it, but I would just like that language to be a little stronger as to the extent to which we are agreeing to pay all full-time employees.
Well, we do need to get a motion going, and what I'm hearing you say is that you have a little bit different language for the motion than what we have. And
I do.
Is it that, can you read it with your language substance?
Okay, I move we authorize the township manager to instruct payroll to maintain 100% compensation for all full-time township employees through the COVID-19 pandemic, as declared by the governor of Michigan. Further, compensation benefits provided to part-time team managers shall be on a case-by-case basis as at discretion of the manager.
Okay. Is there support for that motion? Yes.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wozinski. You want to say anything else about it before I move to somebody else, Mr. DeShane?
Can't hear.
You can't hear, you're muted again.
Just to restate that we do want to continue to pay our employees who are not at work, because we told them not to be at work, but it's important that we continue to pay them. And that I just would like clearer language as to the time period in which we're agreeing to pay them, even though they're not coming to work.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to speak on this?
I also fully support this. I think it's really important that we continue to employ all of our staff, and most importantly, that they all have health benefits during this time, and no lapse in health benefits in the event that something tragic happened to one of our staff. And I would like to add, Treasurer DeShane, I like that you put that language in there, but maybe it's something we want to say per the duration of the executive order. I don't know if that's the time frame that you want, because that's the stay at home, stay safe and stay at home. So I didn't know if that maybe would be language that we want to consider.
I actually like that term better than my term. So per the executive order is a fine substitution as far as I'm concerned.
All right. So the motion maker and the seconder are agreeing that the language now will be what's written before us through the COVID-19 pandemic as per the executive order issued by the governor. All right.
I agree.
Get that, Mr. Clerk? Hello, we can't hear you now.
As we're refining this motion, and I like the direction we're going in, could we take that clause and say further regarding the stay-at-home order so that we know that's what it's actually referring to?
Sounds good. All right. Brett, if you're writing this, can you take a second, write it and get it?
That's what I'm trying to do right now. So basically,
okay.
Would it have?
Do you
Do you want to hear it back?
Yeah, I want to hear everything back as best you can.
Okay, I'm gonna need your assistance, Betty. I move we authorize the township manager to instruct payroll to maintain 100% compensation of all full-time township employees through the COVID-19 pandemic as per the declaration of executive order regarding the stay-at-home order. So it was a little awkward there, but
Well, we can have the, I'm sure you can massage that a little bit to get it.
yes.
We know what we're doing. Okay. And that was acceptable to both Phil and Courtney, correct?
Yes, it is for
Okay.
me.
All right. Is there further discussion?
Ron seconded my motion.
Courtney was the seconder.
Oh, Courtney seconded mine?
Well, no, what
Oh,
we're
no.
doing is
You
we're
did.
putting the language you read as being what was intended by the original DeShane and Wazinski, as you refined it.
And Dreyfus, Stika for that follow after that other amendment. Okay.
All right. I would just point out, the manager put in his memo something that I thought was very worthy of mentioning. We have the revenue expenses budgeted in 2020 to pay our team members. And then many of them are mightily contributing at home. And the team we have is our greatest asset. During a time of crisis, we're rewarded with an opportunity to properly appreciate our team. I think those are important comments, and I think we can all agree to those. Supporting this. Anyone else? Dreyfus.
Thank you. Yes, Sharman. Okay, so yeah, I want to just on a more broader level say that the alternative here is to lay people off, and with the federal stimulus package and the extra unemployment, what many companies are choosing to do is to lay people off and let them get the extra $600 a week that everybody is entitled to, which really gives a bonus to people who are, let's say, lower income employed workers. The trade-off for that, of course, is that the employees feel that, are let go and there's an uncertainty attached to their position. This a typical approach. The approach that Meridian Township is taking is a more humane approach and is more organizationally sound in that it encourages everybody to feel like we're all part of a team. We have the budget in place through the year. Even though there will be some financial impact on our budget, we have the wherewithal to absorb that, maintain our current staffing levels that we budgeted earlier in the year, all the way through the end of the year. And it sends a clear message that everyone is valued. We're all on the same team. We can count on people to work on an as needed basis. And ultimately, I do think it's the right move to really build that cohesion and that kind of excellent customer service approach that we do want to instill in all of our staff to the community at large. So we employ that same customer service attitude towards all of our own people as well.
Thank you. I think you stated well what was stated by the manager and by the speaker so far, expounding on that very well. Anyone else? Ms. Marks, do you have anything that you need to tell us about this before we go with it? You're muted, but you're on the screen.
I am unmuted now. I was trying to help out the clerk on how we could draft this motion. And I think if he states something to the effect that as per the stay home executive order,
Excellent.
really
Okay.
just captures it.
Okay.
As
like
per the stay home executive
I think that's
order.
that's what Phil, Courtney, and Brett were all trying to say.
Just in a few words, that covers, I believe, what your intent is.
Excellent wordsmithing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then I think we're ready to have you vote on this, Brett.
Okay, we're ready to vote.
Yeah, I think so.
Just to be technical, now that we did that, so we're okay with that change of language with no need to make a motion or revise that. We're good that language was the original.
No, Phil, that's the language you wanted, correct?
Correct. Brett, why don't you read the motion one more time?
Did you read it one more time, Joyce?
I move we authorize the township manager to instruct payroll to maintain 100% compensation of all full-time township employees through the COVID-19 pandemic as per the stay-at-home executive order. And then further, compensation benefits provided to part-time team members shall be on a case-by-case basis at the discretion of the manager.
Okay. All right, take the vote then.
Oh, this starts, Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika.
Yes,
Motion
Yes.
passes 6-0.
very good. Excellent teamwork. All right, 12E. This is the roads. We have a proposal and some to vote on. Mr. Perry, you want to tell us about that?
Absolutely. Good evening, Supervisor Stika, members of the board. I appreciate you allowing me to get this on the agenda. We have a contractor who's ready to get moving in May. We wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to potentially get approval. Essentially, the 2020 local road program is pretty large and complex. And in order for us to manage it better, we kind of broke it into 4 phases. This first phase is what we're seeking approval tonight. Essentially, it's the majority of the roads that we've been talking about as far as rehabilitation goes. It's the full depth milling and repaving part of it. It's essentially about 25 roads. We did solicit bids for that, and we received 4. They range from the low bid from Michigan Paving and Materials of Lansing at $2,131,586.15 to the high bid from Levitt and Stark Excavating out of Lansing at $2.44 million. And again, what we're seeking tonight is your approval to proceed the low bid of Michigan Paving and Materials of Lansing, Michigan, so we can get this project underway.
Just as a point of information, right now, are they able to even do this work, or are they held back by the executive order?
Roads are actually considered part of critical infrastructure, so they can proceed.
Oh, very good.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the low bid of 2.1? Want to give there, Derek, again?
Sure, $2,131,586.15.
Okay, and the name of the company again is?
Michigan Paving and Materials of Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, somebody want to make that
Better
motion?
known as Michigan Paving.
Okay. Somebody gonna raise their hands, make a motion? Ms. Sunland,
I don't have it.
Okay, all right. Move to approve the low bid from Michigan Paving and Materials of Lansing, Michigan in the amount of, oh wow,
$131,000.
$2,586.15.
Very good.
Authorize Deputy Township Manager Perry to proceed with the project.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. You want to discuss that at all, Ms. Sunland?
Who's the second?
Jackson.
Thank you.
Well, I think we need to get our roads fixed. So this is a good bid. It was competitive. And we're going with the lowest bidder. It just all seems in order.
Anyone else? Ms. Jackson?
I certainly support moving forward as much as we can to keep this project on track. But I do have one question. I wonder if the prevailing wage policy that we just supported is applied, will be applied to these projects.
Mr. Perry?
They are incorporated in all of our contracts.
Thank you.
Your audio's back on.
Okay, Mr. Treasurer.
2 questions for Mr. Perry. One is Michigan Paving one of the companies that has had some issues with their unions in the past year?
They are. They're one of the major players in the state of Michigan. Them and Reith Riley. They're the other big name you see often in the papers. And essentially, they are the biggest players, and they have had a history of unions not coming together on some projects. But the conversations we've had with them is they're ready to move forward on this project, and in fact, there's a window that potentially we could get going here in late May with these projects, which I think is a good thing because, as I stated earlier, this project is pretty complex. And once we get these underway, we have some other roads that are going to be the more heavy rehabilitation, the crush and shape. And I'm trying to phase it throughout the year.
Great. I'm pleased that this has been brought to us early in the year and that we might see some road construction in May. It's the sooner we can show our residents that their road millage dollars are out there repaving roads, the better. And so this is a good message to send to our residents. So good work getting these bids out there and back with our approval. By the way, how did they come in compared to what you were expecting? Were they lower with the drop in oil prices and slowdown in the economy?
They were actually a little, they were lower than what we were anticipating, which is a good thing. Because again, as the climate changes, it seems to be every month, we probably will need the additional cushion that we received on this end as we move forward with some of those other bids. So.
Great.
I would mention that there's 300,000 roughly difference between the high and low bidder, which indicates that all the bids were probably pretty good, solid bids. Company, of course, is a big one and it has a good reputation anyway, but sometimes the low bidder can be way off from other bids and then you want to look askance at them. But in this case, it's right in the ballpark. I have no problem with it. Anyone else? Okay, then we need a roll call vote.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes.
and Clerk Dreyfus votes yes.
All right.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much. Thank you, Mr. Perry. All right, we're ready to move on to our discussion items. The person who probably has the most interest in talking about it is not here yet, Mr. Opsimer. That is the medical marijuana ordinance amendments, which are trying to deal with some technical issues in terms of people attempting to sit on potential locations and the winners of our limited number of facilities not moving forward with them. Is someone else familiar enough to want to talk about this? Mr. Mintz, do you want to talk about it first, or? Did this come out of our attorneys, or?
Hi, everybody. Peter here. Good to see you all. So there's a memo in your packet that from Matt Kushel, who is available if we want to pull him up as a panelist, but it outlines the changes that have been made since the last time we talked about this item on the agenda. So they were specific to some comments that Trustee Opsimer had made at the last meeting. So what you've got is a new draft and then a timeline of how this is all going to roll out. I think the general idea is we're trying to strengthen some of the provisions related to the timing and the process, controlling some of the applications in terms of renewals, how all that happens, and then really how do we get people to move as quickly as possible through the process. So we're here to answer any questions. And Matt's on the call somewhere too.
Mr. Kushel, our attorney, are you on there? Matt?
Yes.
Do you want to say anything about this before we talk about it?
I think Peter did a good job summarizing it. We tried to input the comments we got from the last meeting. And so if there's additional comments or changes the board would like to see, we're happy to do that or answer any specific questions you have.
The draft language that's in your packet has all the changes from before along with some new ones. And there aren't a lot of new ones.
I looked through them. They looked all right to me, but, was hoping that Dan would be here to talk about it too, although, we're going to be seeing this again, even if we move forward with it, at least twice more, right? Anyone else want to talk on this? Yes, Mr. DeShane.
Yeah, these changes seem to reflect our discussion from the last meeting, I would propose we move forward with this, and we do have, even at the action level, we have the ability to make changes at that point. But I would like to see us bring this up for action at the next meeting.
I believe it would be introduction followed by one meeting, followed by action in the next election. Is that how it works?
Even more reason to move it forward then.
All right. If there's no other discussion, then we'll have this on the agenda for introduction at our next meeting.
I have one question.
Yes, Mr. Dreyfus, thank you.
I just want to make sure, there's been these nuances here, and this is one thing I just wanted to make sure, is this new modification that we did not have before, that if operations are not commenced or construction doesn't begin within 1 year, they forfeit their permit? Was that not there before? And that's one of the changes that's been made?
Mr. Kushel or Mr. Menser? Are you?
So that paragraph 10 at the bottom of page 9 was there, but it was drafted in a different focus. So what we've done is reorient it to the 1 year from the special use permit timeline, which is consistent with the other timelines. So it would forfeit after 1 year if they do not commence operations, which is going to be a pretty clear deadline or pretty clear operational action. And like I said, we went back to the special use permit. So each applicant will end up having a different quote unquote 1 year timeline, since they'll each get their special use permits at different times.
Right.
But it also ensures that each applicant will have a full year to, rehab the interior of an existing building to get it to be what they want, and then get all their final permits and their certificate of occupancy and their license from the state and the ability to open and operate. And if it's a new construction, then they have that first year to commence construction. Then they'd have that second 1 year period under this paragraph 10 to finish that construction and commence operation. So to answer your question, yes, we did have it, a version of it in the prior and currently in the ordinance, but this cleans up the language and makes it consistent with using now the special use permit as one of our key timeline touchstones.
Well, thanks for that clarification. And just so that I can make sure I fully understand this, if the lottery winner does not do that within that time frame and they lose the ability to do that, they lose their permit. So in a 1 year period, we keep that lottery list intact. The number two winner gets notified at that point, and they also have a 90-day period that even after that 1 year period, they have 90 days to begin the entire process. Basically 60 days plus up to 30 days for deficiencies in the SUP.
Those are two separate timelines. So the permit forfeiture under paragraph 10 on page 9, we would likely not go back to the lottery results because that lottery result would have expired.
Right.
The lottery list comes into play if they submit a special use permit, but it's missing some key components. Peter and Mark sent them a deficiency letter. They failed to cure that. And so then no complete SUP is ever submitted that's able to go before the planning commission. That application would get kicked within that 90-day window. And then they would not, then we would go to number 2 on a lot in that case.
Gotcha. Okay. I understand. And if it's anything outside that window, we would have to do a new lottery at some point within a fairly short period of time.
Within the annual time frame. But yes, if someone is forfeited under subparagraph 10 or one of the other penalty provisions, the way to fill that now available permit would most likely be through a new lottery.
Through what?
Would most likely be through a new lottery.
A new lottery. Okay. Okay.
Is that all right then? Is that your concern, Mr. Dreyfus?
Yeah, it was. I was just trying to conceptualize that.
Right. So we're still using the old lottery if the problem is at the front end with the SUP, but then
right.
Once somebody's got that and then nothing happens, et cetera, and they forfeit, that's when we have to go to a new lottery. Is that
Gotcha.
Matt? Peter, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Makes sense.
All right, then we will have this on for action as introduction next time. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. We now go to special use permit number 19141. Speaking of that, the Cured Leaf TC Inc.
This special use permit is for a medical marijuana provisioning center at 3520 Okemos Road. That's an existing retail center. It's on the east side of Okemos Road, north of Okemos Road. The retail center is approximately 13,000 square feet. The applicant is proposing to take approximately 2,000 square feet at the southern end of the building and convert that space for the provisioning center. This is in overlay 7. It's zoned C2, so it's an allowed use by special use permit subject to the board's approval. Since it's an existing retail center, it already meets all the setbacks. There's not going to be an issue with parking on the site. It does meet the required setbacks out of the medical marijuana ordinance for setback from school, churches, and daycares. As you can see, they're over the 500 feet from a preschool, and they're just over 1,000 feet from an existing school, so they meet those setbacks. There was a traffic study done that indicated there would be no impact with this use for the location. Would remain adequate as it is right now, no change in level of service. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this and recommended approval of the special use permit.
Okay, time to discuss this. I have a quick question first. Right now, there are 2 existing businesses in that particular square footage. Is that creating any time issues with regard to this application?
I didn't hear quite, Ron, what you, what was
Well,
the
right,
time?
well, right now you have 2, I think it's Sprint and the Asian Express in that location. Are there any issues in terms of the timing of this? Because they must have existing leases or something. I'm just trying to figure out how quickly this is going to be able to happen. Or
Yeah, I don't have that answer. I can get an answer for you on that. I know that these folks are buying that portion of that building.
All right, Ms. Wasinski, I think you had your hand up.
Director Kieselbach, you mentioned that they plan to use 2,000 out of, I believe you said 15,000 square feet. What's going to occupy the remainder of the square footage in that area?
The existing stores are going to remain that are there. They're taking the 2 suites in the southern half, about a little over 2,000 square feet, converting that for the provisioning center. So the other tenants will remain.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 tenants in that building.
Yeah.
Mr. DeShane.
Yes, I noticed in the planning commission comments, concern was raised that one of the existing tenants is the Mathnasium. And is that still the case? Is Mathnasium still in that plaza? And where will they be relative to this 2-suite medical marijuana operation?
Peter?
Hi, this is Peter. I can respond. So they're in the northern part of that spot. Well, first of all, that business doesn't qualify as one of the restrictions, so they're not a licensed daycare center or education. They do educate, but they're not in that same class. But they're on the very north side of the building, and this would be the provisioning center will be the extreme south tenant.
My concern is we had a lot of residents from the southern half of the township speak on medical marijuana and their concerns about it and their concerns for their students in particular. And it seems that in this case, putting a medical marijuana in the same plaza as a Mathnasium kind of brings to the front their worst idea that we were gonna kind of commingle, youth-centered activities, education institution, agreed, it's not one of our group, our schools that would require the boundary on, but nonetheless, it is a center for students to go and get remedial help with math, virtually next door to a medical marijuana clinic. And it really plays into the fears of those parents. And if my children were still of school age and I was sending them there for remedial math help, I wouldn't be that excited about it either. Is there any talk of possibly finding a better location for the mathnasium?
Oh, I haven't talked to the owners of the mathnasium. We haven't heard from them. We do send notices out to all the tenants in the building, all surrounding property owners, parcel owners, everything. We haven't heard anything from those tenants. Could certainly reach out if that's what you'd like us to do.
If you could, before we take this any further, I would love to know what their thoughts are. And all this, having said all this, it's not as if we are not going to have a highly regulated, carefully monitored and controlled medical marijuana clinic. We're going to have that there. We're going to rate this thing. We're going to make sure they follow every rule. And if they don't, we'll be all over them the first day is our intent here. So we're going to keep close tabs on this. It's really more the optics of this that concern me right now, and optics are important.
Anyone else? So it sounds like what we have is just a question as to what the feelings are of the owners of the mathnasium. And nothing else at this point? Ms. Jackson?
No.
Okay, then this will come back next time for hopefully with the answer to that, but also for action next.
Thank you.
Okay. We now come to Celebrate Meridian. I see we have our illustrious Director of Recreation, Parks, etc. here.
Hello, everyone. Gosh, it's so nice to see everyone.
Nice to see you in this time of hiding.
Celebrate Meridian, as you know, is coming up on June 27th. And, based on everything that's been going on right now, I really wanted to have a discussion with the board regarding, hosting the event this year. We've put a lot of planning into it. As you all know, it's the beer and wine tent, live music, historical village is open, children's activities, the farmer's market, food trucks. There's a lot of effort and a lot of people, our staff, we've got police, fire, parks department, parks and recreation department, treasurer's office, or the finance director who's involved, and all the volunteers. And so this is an event that really works on gathering people together. And we've had an estimated attendance of 15 to 20,000 in recent years. So with everything going on, before we continued to move forward with confirming everything has been reserved and those types of things. I was really interested and Frank as well, as the board's opinions on, I'd like your opinions and concerns, or what do you think we should be doing with the event this year? Because we're ready to move forward as is. But before just doing that, I just thought it was maybe worthy of a discussion with the board to get your thoughts.
Good. Feeling on this? Courtney.
Hi, Leah. Good to see you.
Courtney.
I read through this and I had a few thoughts and just to have a discussion. But this is such a large event for Meridian Township, and we don't have a lot of these events, so I think it's really, really important that we do have this event. My concern, though, is what we're learning through our governor's office as well as Dr. Calhoun. I'm not sure we're going to be in any place in June 27th to have a gathering of that size safely. Even if we do get released from the executive order, stay-at-home executive order, I still feel like we're going to have to officials ensure that people are still safe distancing. Social distancing, and I think it would be really hard to do that. And so some of the thoughts I had, and I like a lot of your suggestions here, is, I mean, it's postponing it, which I know is a lot of work for you. Or maybe it's where we postpone some pieces, maybe continue with fireworks or something like that, where people can stay in their cars. And it's not, we're gathered in, the bar, the play area. I just think it'd be really hard to keep things sanitary and safe. And we're putting a lot of people at risk. That's my thoughts.
Others? Clerk Dreyfus. You're muted, clerk.
Okay. I agree with what Courtney said, and it would be wonderful to kind of try to get back to things as normal as soon as possible. But I think a lot of this pandemic is about risk mitigation, risk management, and it seems that the risk is still unknown at this point about when the stay-at-home order ends and what the transition approach is going to be for how close we can get to one another. How the bottom line is, when would a 6 foot suggested distance minimum be lifted, and is it likely to be lifted by mid-June? And if it was lifted by mid-June, would there be greatly reduced crowds, because a lot of people were not ready to do that yet anyway, even if you could legally do it. So I think that there's a risk of doing it too prematurely, and I like option number 3 on the memo, a memo we have from Luann. Postpone the Celebrate Meridian until late summer, early fall. Partner it with the marketplace on the green grand opening. That makes a lot of sense. Plus, that's not carved in stone. If something is going awry again, hopefully not, but if anything is disease manifestation, re-emergence, or whatever, we can always, make a decision and see what's happening as the summer progresses. But I think option 3 is a good way to go. It's the least risk for our residents, our community, and we can still have a good celebration. And we demonstrate that we really care enough about our residents that we don't want to put them in jeopardy.
Ms. Jackson.
I actually agree with Clerk Dreyfus that the option number 3 given to us by Ms. Maisner seems the most prudent and productive. If there are there really is nothing to know about when this will end and when our isolation will end. And that option gives us an opportunity to combine several activities and be very contemporary at the time for the end of the isolation, if it comes by then. And so as Ms. Wazinski and Clerk Dreyfus have noted, the option number 3 seems the most prudent and positive one in my mind.
Okay. I sort of started out with my thing coming in was number 2, because I agree that there's no way of knowing that we're going to be out of it on June 27th or out of it long enough for people to feel like they can go and be comfortable in crowds, et cetera, even maybe whether they should be. Number 2, we would have still had fireworks, which people often could just sit in their cars, but that also is going to encourage people, as I'm thinking about this, to get out of their cars and together, which is the downside of it. I do feel that once this is over, we need to do some things to bring normalcy, but you can't predict when this is going to be over. So I guess I'm being persuaded by those who've spoken so far to go towards number 3. I saw another hand up. Mr. DeShane.
I agree with all the comments made so far, and in particular, appreciate Trustee Wazinski's public health perspective. I would love to think we could do this on June 27th. I know our community wants this event. They want events like this. This is usually our best day in the township, is to celebrate Meridian, and it's going to be a fun event again. But from a public health point of view, to look at something that's really 9 weeks off just is too close. And so moving it to the late summer, early fall makes a lot of sense to me. The other issue is funding issue. I know that's the question that Director Maisner is asking us. If there is a shortfall in funding, is the board willing to make up that gap? And we don't know yet how bad our budget's going to look for the rest of the year based on revenue sharing drop that we're going to see from the state and potentially a property tax or small personal property tax drop. Last year we raised, it looks like about $55,000, Luann, for Celebrate Meridian. Is that correct?
Yeah, our fundraising was around $30,000. And then the other $25,000 approximately was from vendor fees from the food trucks and the arts and crafts vendors. And we sold wristbands in the children's game area. So it was, and the beer and wine tent revenue. So those were all of our revenues were around 55. So we came very close to breaking even last year. This year, we've only been able to raise 8,000 out of the 30 that we did last year. So I do have a concern with what's going on if our businesses are going to be able to be as generous this year as they have been in the past. So, I wouldn't, come to the board for a decision or a discussion about an event, but this is such a large one that gathers a large amount of people, and there's a lot of resources that we put toward this. And so it's a bigger decision than just something that we felt comfortable just kind of deciding on our own what to do. So I appreciate all these comments. These are all very good.
Follow-up question, Luann. Is it scalable? Can we do a Celebrate Meridian with 20,000 or 15,000 in contributions rather than 30,000?
Oh, sure. Sure. In fact, with even with the children's game area, I believe we spent I don't know, around $8,000 or $9,000 on giant inflatables. Now we were able to get all that money back from selling wristbands, but inflatables have a lot of touching and kids are climbing on those, and those probably wouldn't be something we'd want to bring back this year. I think even if we wait till the fall. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely scalable. Trustee DeShane, that's a very good point.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Director Maisner, is the market still on track in terms of the timeline for its completion?
No, with the governor's executive order, the construction had to be suspended.
Right.
Now it's something, to consider, it is going to be a farmer's market. Farmer's markets are considered an essential service with the governor's order, but that would be questionable as to whether we could go on that premise and continue. So right now that construction is on hold as well.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Opsmer, welcome. Go ahead.
How's everyone doing?
We're doing fine.
So I would concur with Trustee Wazinski and Clerk Dreyfus. I think it's best at this point to postpone both until late summer, early fall. Right now, the state's public health experts within DHHS are advising the governor to extend the state of emergency and disaster until June 10th. And that's as we sit, in early April, that recommendation came out. So it's highly unlikely several weeks later in June that the public is going to be ready for an event like this, much less, the risk being lifted to hold such an event. The other thing that I would put out there is that there are businesses in the community that are doing quite well despite this. So the grocers, other local businesses like Delta Dental have not been adversely impacted. So we should start compiling a list of those. I have some in mind with some contacts that would be willing to, that I think would be willing to help pitch in. So I think the funding, at least from the private fundraising standpoint, can be alleviated just by kind of changing who we approach and how we approach them.
Great.
That's all I have on that item.
Anyone else have a comment? Your light came on, Ms. Jackson. Does that mean you want to talk or you just,
No,
you moved? It just,
I just moved.
Ms. Wazinski.
Just one other thought that, if we push this back to fall, some of the, public health officials have suggested that once we do start, transitioning back into the public more, we might see an uptick again in a re-exposure. Something just to think about, Luann. I know
Okay.
you're thinking about all of that, but contingency of that sort where, if we were to see that in the fall, that might be right around that same time again.
Right. Okay.
I think one thought would be to put an emphasis maybe on moving fireworks to Labor Day or something.
Yeah.
And then the other events, scaled back or not, be more flexible as to where you go.
Okay.
Just another thought.
No, those are all great thoughts. I appreciate it.
Anyone else have a thoughts they want to throw at Luann's way? Yes, you've heard.
Well,
what
if you
we
do,
have.
just call me, send me an email.
Okay,
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you, and thanks for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
All right, our last item for discussion is the hazard pay. Mr. Walsh wants to talk to us about that. Is that right, Mr. Walsh?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. One of the other issues that's come up across the state, and as we know, the state of Michigan has implemented hazard pay. And again, in talking to 40 different managers in Michigan, you can get 34 opinions on this as to what communities ought to be doing or should be doing or will be doing. And I've given it a lot of thought. Knowing our budget situation the way it is right now. And just to reiterate to the board and remind you of something that I'm sure you all know, we do have $100,000 budgeted in a personnel line item this year. And that was to fund employee incentive pay, 312 arbitration defense cost. We have 3 units, the 2 police, patrol and command and fire that can go to 312 to challenge and to pursue the contract that they think that they ought to have. So it looks like out of those 3 units, if we do have arbitration, it would only be 1. It could be 0. And so therefore, the money that the board set aside in the budget for funding any number of those things that I just talked about is probably could be 0. And so with that, we look at, is it right? Is it the right thing to do? You hear call volume is down in the fire and police department. That is true. That's because the 43,000 residents of Meridian Township are adhering to the governor's stay-at-home order. But at the same time, our paramedics, and it's important to know, I don't know that everyone knows this, but our police officers are also trained medical first responders. I believe currently 34 out of 37 are trained in that regard. And the 3 that are not are working to that goal. So in the last 6 to 8 weeks, at a minimum, our first responders have been out there showing up, doing their jobs, what they're paid to do, right? But they've also been taking great risk for themselves and their families by coming in contact with COVID-19. When you take all that into totality, for me, I think the memo speaks for itself. How I feel. I'm not going to belabor the point. The question to you tonight is, how do you feel about setting aside? It's approximately $70,000. There'd be some discretion that would come into this because we have some people who are off duty and have not been working the last couple of months. We would deal with that situation differently. But approximately $1,000 times 70 public safety, police and fire personnel would all receive this sometime in June. So that's what's being presented to you. That's why we brought it forward. And that's how it would be funded if the board sees fit.
Okay. Or discussion. Treasurer.
Yeah, I want to thank the manager for bringing this forward. I like this idea a lot. We do have frontline responders out there in the police and fire department that are really putting their lives on the line every time they go to a call. And they take enormous personal risks and risks of infection and infecting their whole family. It truly is a hazard out there right now. There are so many unknowns. We have so little testing that's been done on this virus. We don't know how bad this infection is. We really don't. And it's a crime that we don't, but we don't. And the people that are out there kind of moving blind are our police and fire, and they take this risk every day and these calls, and we're very well served by them. And so I think hazard pay would be a very important message to send to them, that we value their courage, we value the frontline work they're doing to protect our community. So I strongly support this.
Courtney.
I would agree with the treasurer. I think, I don't think there's enough funding to thank all of the folks doing all of our first responding. So I would certainly support this. My question is, the manager, this would not be in lieu of overtime or any other extra time that they're giving. Is that correct?
That is correct, trustee.
Thank you.
I would comment that I have been tracking a lot of things, and one of the things I've noticed is a lot of communities are giving various forms of hazard pay to their police, fire, and people that are working in the hazardous situations. And it's not, I mean, every day is hazardous for a policeman. Every day is hazardous for a firefighter. But what this is a different kind of hazard. It's a hazard that you're going to end up very sick, maybe dying, and maybe take it to your wife, your children, your husband. I mean, there's so it's a different kind of hazard. I think it does warrant something over and above. And so I like the idea. I think we should do it if this budget, even though we don't know where the budget's going to go eventually. There might be some hard times for us, but I think it's warranted. Not seeing anybody. Yes, Mr. Dreyfus.
I think it's fair, and I think we have, the sufficient resources to pay it. And the argument that $1,000 per frontline responder seems appropriate and is a good way to go. So I can be behind that.
Mr. Opsmer.
Yeah, I also thank Manager Walsh for bringing the idea to our attention. I see that many other local units of government are doing the same. My only question would be, how would this $1,000 in one-time hazard pay compare to other communities in Michigan that have taken this step?
Well, that's an interesting, would you like me to respond, Supervisor?
Yes, please.
Okay. That's an interesting question, Trustee Opsmer. Actually, if the board moves forward with this, will be an aberration for what I'm hearing. I'm on a listserv with approximately 250 other managers in Michigan, township, county, village, city. And my opinion's been a little bit different than most on the listserv, and I think Mr. Perry would concur with that. There's been a lot of soul searching, let's put it that way. I disagree wholeheartedly with those that are making a claim, and there's a lot of them. They're making a claim that they're fire and police officers and they should be used to this. That's what they're paid for, and I couldn't disagree more. You're paid to show up for the heart attack. You're paid to show up for the broken leg. You're paid to show up for a lot of things, but to show up to someone who possibly has a deadly virus on an everyday occurrence, and you could be taking that home, as the supervisor indicated, to your partner, husband, wife, kids, that's way beyond. And so if you look at what's going on in the state right now, out of Ingham County, we were talking about hazard pay. We're not emulating anyone here. We were talking about hazardous pay 6 weeks ago. We made it clear to the police and fire departments here in Meridian, and the supervisor can vouch for this because my first discussion with the supervisor about this was in mid-March. So we're about a month ago. But we would be an aberration statewide if this goes forward. Here locally, and with this, of course, the state of Michigan, but there's not a lot of communities that are doing this at this time. And from the sounds of it, not a lot of them that supported at this time. If you go by our listserv, now that's not policymakers and elected officials who I think ought to be making this decision. I don't think it should rest at the administrator's desk. So I hope that answers your question. I know it's a long answer, but I've been talking to a lot of managers about this issue in Michigan over the last 3 weeks.
That's helpful. I was just looking at a news story about the city of Detroit, and they're looking at the city of Atlanta, which is authorized $500 per month in hazard pay during the COVID-19 pandemic, and seeing other stories from other states where they're authorizing a hourly wage increase during the pandemic. So I was just looking to get a feel for that. So that's very helpful, and I fully support it, at least in so much as it's a first step, and we will see how this all progresses.
I'm on some list serves with supervisors and mayors, and I think the elected officials there is a greater tendency to want to do this than there may be among managers. And I am aware that Detroit is doing something, but Detroit also has officers that have literally died from COVID-19. A lot more officers out there, and it's also the most hazardous place in terms of COVID-19, greater Detroit area right now. But I think we definitely should do it, and I like the idea. Else? Okay, I think, do you need us to vote on something, or are you satisfied with the consensus, Mr. Welsh?
We will move it up to we'll move it up to action in May, give you more time to think about it and talk to other people in the community. We don't have to rush this because the payment wouldn't be until June. So we'll put it on, if it's okay with you, Mr. Supervisor, we'll put this on for whatever meeting in May you go with.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? All right, then we're ready to move on to comments from the public again. And Mr. Geebies, are you out there? And you want to give that number again?
The telephone number where we're accepting public comments is 517-349-1232. Again, that number 517-349-1232. It doesn't sound like the phone's ringing off the hook, but if you want to just tell people really quickly, Supervisor Stika, how we do the public comments here, we'll give people a chance to call in.
Well, okay, again, it's 3 minutes, but I have something else I can mention. We are scheduled on our schedule that we adopt annually to meet next week. Based on the fact that the Planning Commission is not really producing anything for us right now, there's activity going on, but it's not the heavy usual load. I'm going to suggest that perhaps we have our next meeting at the May, I think it's 5th, first Tuesday in May, and another virtual meeting at that time. And I'm wondering how board members feel about it while we're waiting for the public to call in. Mr. Dreyfus.
Yeah, I support that move. I think that meeting May 5th is appropriate.
That would be about 3 weeks. We'd have bills, et cetera. And by that time, we may have some other work that is going to come up.
And just to close out the public comment, we have no calls that have come in at this time, sir.
All right, thank you very much. All right, then other matters from other board members. I gave mine, so to speak. Mr. Dreyfus.
Thank you. It's with regret that I must announce that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that I did make a decision to cancel the Memorial Day service that we have every year on Memorial Day, which would be May 25th. I was waiting to make a decision on what to do, but of course, we just had this whole conversation, about 20 minutes ago on Celebrate Meridian. And of course, this is a lot closer than Celebrate Meridian was planned. And it would be close quarters for everybody. Even if we try to separate it out, it just really wouldn't work. The band has to be close together, and it's just not going to work. So I'm going to send out an email to all parties and let them know. This is the first time, I believe, in 25 years that it has been canceled. So there we are.
I think you made a good decision. You know, it's people are not able to right now, and so Memorial fits right in with that. I lost a cousin about a week ago, and we couldn't have a funeral. So it's a sad time for all of us, and I'm sure that you'll find another way, or you'll do even a better job next year, Brett.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Mr. DeShane?
Yes. I missed the board member comments to start the meeting, so I just want to make a couple of comments here. One is that our service clubs, and particularly the Kiwanis and the Rotary, have begun to meet again and having meetings like this, and are poised to take action as need develops in our community, and particularly to help with schools and help with families that might need help with home technology now that they're having to have instruction being brought home into their homes. The Rotary, I did want to mention the Rotary in particular. I got an email from Dan Wilkerson, the president of the Rotary, and if I could share part of this with you, I'd like for the full board and to hear it. It said, the nominating committee, with the concurrence of the board, has selected Frank Walsh as our club hero for the 2019 year. This is what the committee wrote about Frank in making the recommendation to the district. Frank Walsh, a former club president and township manager of Meridian Township, is our hero. He exhibits the qualities of calm, steady leadership, especially in times of crisis. As with all great leaders, he has the respect and admiration of his staff, his fellow Rotarians, and the greater community. He's an enthusiastic supporter of club projects, generous in his support of the Rotary causes, and persuasive in his bringing people together for important endeavors. Never has his strengths been more obvious than addressing the coronavirus pandemic as a leader of our community of 43,000 residents. Communication and support from our government leader and his staff has been constant and reassuring. For these reasons, we select Frank Walsh as our Rotary hero. This comes at a great time because I think that we are in a crisis, and our people are scared and people are concerned about the health of their family and of our whole community. And it's a time when leaders really do emerge, and clearly Frank's leadership has come to the fore and has been a very strong leader and very instrumental in us managing this crisis. So Frank, congratulations on the award, and thank you again for your leadership here in the township and your strong work as manager.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But you know, a lot of this wrapped around the whole COVID response and all of that. But let me tell you, it starts with the great people that I'm surrounded with Chief Hamill, Chief Plaga, and Manager Perry. And you know, I'm sure Supervisor Stike is getting tired of the phone calls. In fact, one point he told me he was going to charge me $1 a call, and I said I couldn't afford that. But I appreciate the township board. You know, there's been a lot of discussions in the last few weeks, and appreciate the support of the community and the Rotary board. And it all helps when you're surrounded by great people and the team that we have. So thank you very much.
I can't speak to any of the Rotary stuff, but I can tell you that Mr. Walsh, along with both Chiefs Hamill and Plaga and the Mr. Perry, have been more than full time during this time when others are not able to. They are working extremely hard. Those are taking care of all the essential services. And then underneath them, we got a ton of good people here that are having to work and work hard, whether they're making sure we got water and sewage, or police and fire protection, first responders of various kinds beyond the police and fire, and others who are coming into the office. I mean, or working from home to carry out the duties. Was said in that piece that you just read, Mr. DeShane, a lot of it comes back to the leadership that's coming from the top, but we really do appreciate it. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, there's two other people I'd like to mention who have really given a lot in the last few weeks. And that's on my screen, top center. Director Marks. You know, she's really had a lot to handle with all this federal stuff coming down, and she's in here every day and making sure that all the employees are taken care of. And Carol Hassey with the payroll. You know, if you enjoy getting your check, any of you on the screen, you can certainly thank Joyce and Carol for that. And if you like to be able to have a meeting, you can thank Stephen Davis and that team and Brandy's communications team. So I could go on and on. Deputy Clerk Bigsby in here today, making sure that all the elected officials can be taken care of. So it goes throughout the building, and the treasurer's office in here handling utility bills. People have got to be taken care of. So I just appreciate everyone that's working on this together.
I think we all do. Mr. DeShane.
One follow-up, we have established this hotline, and I wonder if you can give us a quick summary of how the hotline's going, what the call volume is like. You can see my wallpaper. I put this number up wherever I can so people know that there is a number to call for non-emergencies. Do you want to give us an update on how the hotline is going?
Yeah, the hotline's available from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. It's for only non-emergency COVID issues that people are having. Up to date, we've received 57 phone calls in the last 9 days on that on the hotline. Again, non-emergencies, 853-4040. The calls have really ranged across the board from can I still have a backyard barbecue? Can I go to my friend's house? Today it was, we work in a martial arts studio. Can we have something to give our belts out? And then we've had some very serious calls of I don't have any groceries. I don't know what to do. And I have a bridge card, but I can't get anyone to accept my bridge card. What do I do? We had a lady up in Hazlitt, an elderly woman. She told me she was 87 years old. She could get her groceries delivered and she had some money to pay for them, but no one would bring them into the house for her. We had that issue. Chief Plaga has been helpful with that. And then we had a residence in Indian Hills, a blind individual. And again, groceries to the house, but no way to get them into the house. So a lot of the phone calls, most of them have centered on groceries and food and how to have access. And then there's been other calls that have been just, can I take my kayak out on Lake Michigan or Lake Lansing? So it's been a variety, but the most important thing is those 57 people who have called have appreciated having someone live on the other end when they've had their questions. So overall, our teams responded very well to it, and we're going to keep it going until the executive order is lifted, not the end of the pandemic.
Thank you.
I think we lost the supervisor.
I know the feeling. I mean, the meeting's going great, then suddenly it's gone. So it's a technical issue we need to be aware of, that people can just disappear from the meeting. And,
where's Alexander Haig when you need him?
All right, I will sit in as the supervisor pro tem and ask if there are any additional board member comments.
Actually, the clerk steps in usually in this perspective. When the supervisor's not present, the clerk leads the public body initially, or a motion's made as to someone else to take that position. Just as a protocol.
Let me go see if I can.
Well, I don't know who will recognize it, but I move that we adjourn.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. What time is it? 7:45. 7:45.
All right, thank you all.